Welcome to Missions Life, where we share resources and encouragement for current missionaries, future missionaries, and those praying for missionaries. Missions can be hard, and we want to help you face the challenges of life, leadership, and ministry. We want your life to bear fruit for the gospel wherever you are. I'm Kyle Ferran, here with my co-host and wife, Heather. Big news, everyone. Today is the day. Godly Grit is now available on Amazon. This has been a 4-year process of working on this book, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to share it with you. Working on this has completely changed my life, so I am very excited to see how God uses it in your lives as well. Today, I want to share with you from Psalm 112. This is a passage I use in the book a lot. And this psalm has been deeply impactful to my life personally. When facing challenges, I used to think, if I can just get past this problem, things will be better. And I would push and I'd pushed through one issue only to see another one on the horizon. And then I'd get discouraged because I had hoped for a season with no problems. And I'm sure probably some of you out there can relate to that. And I came across this Haitian proverb that God really used to impact me. And here it is. It says this: behind mountains are more mountains. If I always hope for easy, I keep getting discouraged. But if I expect challenges, I can pace myself and I can be prepared. Now, this doesn't mean we need to have a pessimistic attitude, but it does mean that we have a realistic understanding that we will face challenges. We'll be ready for the next climb. And Jesus also reminds us of the same truth. He says in John 16:33, "In the world you will have tribulation." Now, here's something I noticed, though, and you may have noticed the same thing. We all face challenges, but everyone responds differently. Some people quit, some complain, others seek sympathy, many panic or worry, and still others respond as if discomfort itself was a threat to their emotional well being. But a few people quietly endure with calm courage. Why? What's different about those that endure, those that are calm in the storm? Where do they find their reservoir of strength, courage, resilience, and grit? Even more importantly, if they can find it, can I find it? Can we find it? I believe that we can, and the answers are in God's Word. God's Word gives us the proper perspectives on challenges. Changing our perspective on challenges doesn't change our challenges, it changes us. This was really illustrated to me when we were in South Africa. Every year we'd go camping up in the mountains, and every year it would rain. Now, when you're camping, the enemies are rain, cold, and wind. So you're trying to protect yourself against those and trying to avoid them as much as possible. One year, I wanted to go hike up to the top of Tugela Falls, which is the second highest waterfall in the world. On that hike, the rules were if anyone that wanted to come, there was no turning back unless there was a blizzard, and there was no complaining, no matter what. My daughter Abby and I did the hike, and wouldn't you know it, the first half of the day, we walked through a rain cloud, and it was foggy. You could hardly see. It was raining on us. We were climbing up chain ladders on the cliff face, made it to the top. But as I looked back on that, I realized, you know what? The rain didn't bother me like it did at the campsite. And I realized why. The reason was I had a different goal. I had a different purpose. My goal was to climb. I was trying to get to the top, to the summit. When I was camping, my goal was comfort. And as our perspectives change, it changes how we feel about the circumstances. Same rain, but I felt very different about it. Changing our perspective on our challenges doesn't change our challenges. It changes us. It helps us endure with grit and resilience. And so today we're going to look at a description of those who are unshakable, even in the midst of hard times, even in challenges. In Psalm 112, verses 6-8, it says, "For the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever. He is not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting in the Lord. His heart is steady. He will not be afraid until he looks in triumph on his adversaries." What an incredible description. not afraid of bad news, a steady heart, never moved. Do you want those to describe you? I know I do. I don't want to panic whenever I hear bad news. I want to be calm and steady. I want to have inner peace even when there's no outer peace in my circumstances. So, how are the righteous described? First, notice what the righteous is not. In verse 6, it says, never be moved. If we're movable, it means that events and circumstances can cause our life to be shaken to the core. But if we're immovable or unshakable, it means that events and circumstances don't cause our life to be shaken to the core. On a recent vacation that Heather and I were on, we visited a waterfall, and all along the riverbanks were these steep, rocky cliffs, and trees were clinging to the rocks. And as I looked really close at it, I noticed that the tree roots actually were embedded down in the crevices of the rocks, and they wrapped themselves around the rocks. So whenever storms were going to come there, those trees were not going to be shaken. Why? Because they're rooted to the rock. They have an unshakable foundation. So what does it mean to be unmovable or unshakable? It's being rooted to something that doesn't move. Even when everything else around us may be shifting, we don't. Now, bending is not the same as being shaken. Bending is resilience. Resilient trees can bend, but their roots hold. We can flex and adapt when challenges come without being shaken to our core. So the first thing that we notice in these verses is that the righteous are not moved. The second thing in verse 7, it says, he's not afraid of bad news. What happens when you get bad news? Well, there's a difference between being sad about bad news and afraid of it. When we're afraid, our body responds, our heart rate increases. We start thinking about all the ramifications of this event and how it's going to impact our lives and others. When we're afraid of bad news, we're fighting against it. We're trying to prevent it. If we're afraid of bad news, we're always just waiting for something bad to happen. So even when nothing bad is happening, we're still in fear of what could happen. We live in fear. But here's an incredible truth. When we accept that life is difficult, like accepting rain on that hike, and we accept that challenges are part of God's plan, it transforms us. Having the proper perspective increases our joy and our strength in everything that we do. It gives us hope. Again, this transformation doesn't change our challenges, it changes us. It changes who we are. We're no longer easily shaken. Instead of focusing on removing challenges, which is what I've always done in the past, or avoiding those hard things, we need to focus on becoming stronger in God's strength. The next thing you notice in verse 8, it says, he will not be afraid. When things happen that are hard and we don't see a good way out of them, are we afraid? If so, what causes that fear? Well, a big part of it is our desires. If we desire comfort in this life, anything that threatens our comfort will cause us to fear. If we think we deserve comfort, we might get angry when anything threatens to take it away. And this is why most people are constantly complaining and overwhelmed, because every challenge shakes them to their core. They expect things to be easy. They deserve easy. Problems or difficulties feel like this an attack on their unspoken belief that they deserve better. So, what the righteous are not moved, are not afraid of bad news, and are not afraid. So, now we'll look and see what the righteous are. It says, his heart is firm, trusting in the Lord. His heart is steady. We don't need to fear because he's in control. The verse says, his heart is firm, trusting in the Lord. Having a firm heart comes from trusting in the Lord. Remember back to those tree roots, how they were wrapped around the rocks. Their foundation was trusting in the rocks being unmoving. No matter what else was happening around them, if the rock didn't move, they didn't move. The same thing can be true of us. If God is our foundation, then we can be immovable because he's immovable. We can be unshakable because our foundation is unshakable. Fear means we're shakeable, but faith makes us unshakable. A great example of this was after Jesus calmed the storm. He said, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" See, faith is the opposite of fear. Faith overcomes fear, trusting God. Faith in God's plan makes us unshakable. So why do we fear? Why are we easily shaken? Because when we base our life on pursuing comfort or don't trust that God's plan is best, everything that goes against our plan causes fear. We're shaken because we're not sure how things are going to work out. I've noticed something about myself that you may relate to. I feel really confident when I think I know the plan. When things feel predictable, I'm pretty calm. But what happens when that plan falls apart? Well, that's when fear starts. Here's what God taught me through that. If I fear when plans change, then my faith wasn't based on God's character. It was based on my approval of a plan. True faith is not based on knowing the outcome. It's based on knowing the one who controls the outcome. To share an illustration of this, when we lived in South Africa, our family often drove to the game park. One day, as we were driving to the game park, we came up over a ridge and we spotted a black rhino about 40 yards away. Black rhinos wake up on the wrong side of the bed every day of their life, and this one lived up to that reputation. He looked up and, with no warning, charged at full sprint. And as he was charging towards us, I remembered something I'd read in a motorcycle safety book a couple of years before that. When a dog chases a motorcycle, you don't actually speed up, or the dog will adjust and it'll intercept you at your new location. And so instead, what you do is you slow down and you let that dog commit to a specific path. And then at the last second, you accelerate. And the dog doesn't have time to readjust and meet you at your new spot. So I thought, well, 30-pound dog, 3,000-pound rhino, it's the same trigonometry. So I just eased the vehicle forward and started putzing along and just drawing the rhino in. He was charging full steam, 30 yards out, 20 yards out. Now my family, they're still in the car and they are freaking out. Kids are jumping over seats. My wife's hitting me on the arm, yelling, "Go, go, go, go." And I didn't have time to explain. All I said was, "I've got this." I just keep putzing along. When it was 10 yards out, I hit the gas. The rhino skidded past the back of the vehicle and rolled down a hill, missed us by a few yards. Now, my calm in that situation came because I knew what the plan was. My family did not know what the plan was. I had a little bit of knowledge in that situation, but God has infinite knowledge. He knows the plan. He's made the plan. He's got this. He wants us to trust him in that situation. He may not explain to us the new plan of how things are going to work out, but we need to trust him. Faith looks at a person, not a plan. We don't need to know the plan. We just need to know that God has a plan. He's going to accomplish it, and it is a good and it is a loving plan. Are we trusting in the Lord? When we get bad news or when challenges arise, what comes to the surface? Fear or faith? When our hearts rest in his immovable foundation, we can be unshaken by it, even when everything else around us is shaken. Now, the last thing I want to notice in these verses is the result, because how we handle challenges is very important, not only for us personally, but in how we glorify God. In verse 6, it says, "For the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever." Other people notice those who are not easily shaken. They're remembered. Faith makes God look really big. But if we're easily shaken, it makes God look small and weak to others. Our faith paints a picture of who God is. People measure God's greatness by the measure of our faith. When challenges and problems don't cause us to fear, but do cause others to fear, it shows that our God is greater than our problems. Our faith makes God look great. And your challenges are an opportunity to glorify God through our faith. What is your faith showing others about God? What do people remember about you? Your faith in a big God or your fear that God's not big enough or good enough? So my challenge for you today is this: trust Him with unshakable faith. Don't be afraid of bad news. Trust in the Lord. And as you do, you prove to others around you, God is great. Psalm 112, verses 6 through 8. For the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever. He's not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting in the Lord. His heart is steady. He will not be afraid until he looks in triumph on his adversaries. I hope this was a blessing to you today. If this was encouraging to you, please share it with someone else. And if you want to dive deeper into some of these principles and these perspectives on challenges, I'd encourage you to grab a copy of Godly Grit. I really pray and hope that it is a blessing to you in your life as you learn to walk through challenges, to not be afraid of bad news, and to trust God even in the midst of hard times. As you do, I pray that you will make God look great and glorious. God bless. Well, that's all for this show, and we want to thank you again for spending your valuable time with us today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider taking just a moment and giving us a great review. Your review will help people find the podcast and allow these resources to encourage more people. If you took something valuable away from this episode, please share it with someone who would enjoy it.
If you'd like to find the show notes, blog posts, and free resources for ministry and leadership, as well as some information on my book, Overflowing, visit kylefarran.com. That's KYLEFARRAN.com. Hope to see you soon on a future podcast.